Hey,
Hey, Richard.
how you doing? Hey,
I'm doing great. How are you?
good.
Good to see you.
Thanks for inviting us.
I set up a bunch of stuff out back. You want to come out and
Yeah, let's go.
We can go do
Let's
that.
go see.
All right,
Sure.
great.
I'm
Thanks.
ready.
Come on in.
Oh, thank you. This is the where it all happens.
This is our meeting room. Where
the
we do
brain center.
The training. Yeah, I guess you might call it that.
Oh, it's a good sized room though. Isn't
It is. It is. We do training twice a week.
How
So
many people do you have on your crew?
we have right now 12.
12. Well, so you have a pretty good size.
Yeah.
crew.
Yeah.
And they stay busy.
They do. Actually, this is our busiest time of the year. So we're
That's
very
funny.
busy.
After Christmas, huh?
Yeah.
The holiday season.
Well, the heating season's kicking in, and
well, that's
this
right.
is
Everybody's
typically-
getting kickstarted.
yeah, and this is typically the time as the weather gets colder that you find a lot of water heaters that are letting go.
Okay, yeah. Well, you know, the basis of the program, the series that we're doing for the GoGreen Home Show, is to find out about, you know, how people can improve the quality of their air inside. And one of the things we find is moisture coming in unwanted
Sure.
is a major problem. And I think you just said it, like water heaters letting go.
Sure,
And so I
sure.
think the more and more I find out about it, so what we want to do is kind of address that, and hopefully for our viewers, they'll be able to get an idea of some of the things they can do home maintenance, and what I'd like to do is some of the things they shouldn't do,
Sure,
you know, from the perspective of danger or safety.
sure,
So,
absolutely.
so I think primarily when you go to a home that what do you usually it's the bottom that kind of rusts out, is that correct, on an electric heater?
Well, yes, I mean, sometimes you can identify some rust. The other thing that we do a lot is we actually do an internal inspection of the tank as part of a service that we do, and many people do that. You can actually put a camera inside the tank to see if the tank
Oh, okay.
has integrity or if it's starting to lose its integrity by inspecting the inside of the tank. That's part of a procedure that we do. We call it the water heater maintenance program.
Okay, so yeah, so I mean, primarily everybody should be, and when they get a new, I think, what is it? What's the life expectancy of a water heater?
The warranties that the manufacturers put on them right now are 6-year and 10-year. They're typically glass-lined tanks. There are some water heaters that have stainless steel tanks that have a longer warranty, but typically it's 6 to 10 years.
6 to 10. And is that realistic? Like usually that's the outside view? I mean, what
It all depends on water quality and everything else,
Okay.
and are they doing the maintenance? Are they cleaning the sediment annually off the bottom of their tank? Are they inspecting their relief valves and doing all the things? And, you know, by manufacturer's recommendation, you're supposed to be replacing that relief valve every 3 years regardless.
Okay,
But you're also supposed to be inspecting it once a year, and that means you basically pop the lever and see if it will shut off. And what homeowners don't want to do is if it doesn't shut off, you do not want to plug that. It's a reason it's called a safety relief valve.
so you have one here?
I do, that's it right there. So this would be on the side of the tank, like you saw the tank.
Right, and
At
you've
the
got a pipe
beginning.
running down, if I remember correctly.
Yes, a pipe running down, typically it's a foot off the floor, so you could fit a bucket under it.
Okay.
Okay, that's by code, that's how it's supposed to be. And you would lift this lever here, okay, and that would mean you've opened it, and then it should snap back and shut off 100%.
Okay,
What a lot of times we have found is when customers see the dripping coming down, they say, thinking there's something wrong with this valve, and we've actually seen people that will plug this off. They'll
oh wow.
plug it
Just
off.
go in
And
it's
basically it makes a bomb inside your house because
just pressure.
it's pressure and heat, and you know what happens with that. And if you go online, you can kind of look that up through the Watts company, and you'll actually see water heaters that actually go right up through the center of houses, taking out the structure and everything. So this is a safety valve, and that's why it's called that. So if it starts to leak, you need to have it serviced.
So the key with this then is to take that, and the homeowner should periodically just
Open that up.
open that, and then let it snap back?
And yeah, or if it won't snap back by itself, just hit it down so it will go off.
And you're waiting for clear water, am I correct?
It should be clear water. It should be clear water. That's not cleaning the sediment off the bottom of your tank. That's a different valve that we would use for that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
On the cleaning the sediment out of the tanks, that valve is typically at the bottom, like we pointed out on the water heater that we saw, the drain on the bottom of the tank. Problem with that is if it hasn't been done recently, when they open it up, they're gonna get a lot of sediment. And as a homeowner, you're really not gonna be able to clear that. You gotta back the whole thing out and flush the whole tank. We call it the water heater blast that we do.
So you're gonna put pressure, back pressure into the tank and then?
Well, you'd have to actually pull the valve out if you can't get
Okay.
that to shut, because there's a lot of sediment in there. And then you gotta flush the whole tank out and then do it. But if you're doing it on an annual basis, you should be okay to open and close that
All
valve.
right, and so I think then, this is something the homeowner could do this periodically, I mean, it doesn't have to be every year.
Just be careful, the water is hot.
Yeah,
Make sure you have the drip, what they call the drip tube on that, the relief pipe on that. If you don't, the water will spray all over the place, and that could burn you. So you want to make sure it's got the pipe on it, and if it doesn't, call somebody to put it in, or if you know how to do that, go ahead and put a pipe on that.
but that sediment cleaning, that's I mean, I'm glad you said that, because,
Sure.
you know, in my head, I do that myself without thinking.
Sure.
But that's where the problems come in.
That's the sediment on the bottom of the tank, and
Right.
typically that's what cuts your efficiency way out of a water heater, because the more sediment you build up, typically the heating elements are right there, whether it's electric or whether it's gas, and it has to heat all that up before it can heat your water up. And that's where you lose all the efficiency in the tank as well, and that makes the tanks overwork and in turn premature failure.
So I guess then, we'll say for a licensed person comes in and actually knows how to clean that, and
Right.
it's much better.
Well, it is.
I mean,
It is certainly you know, once we get it up to snuff, if they wanted to flush it once a year, you could do that if they were handy to do that. But we include that in our service. We have what we call the MSP, is a service plan, where we include the water heater maintenance in that to do it once a year, as well as, you know, other safety things like your smoke detectors and all that stuff.
Okay, yeah, so that's just kind of an annual thing that makes
It is.
sense. And plus you're going along with your warranty too.
Right, and that covers the manufacturer's warranties, because the manufacturers also put in their warranties that if you're not doing the annual maintenance, that their warranties are no longer
Okay.
valid.
And this way you've got a documentation.
You have the documentation, we have it in our stuff, and typically we would put something like this on your piece of equipment. So, and a lot of contractors do this, and they just put down, you know, what had been done and when it was serviced. That way it makes it easy to come back
And
in.
this is, you know, a lot of times, we do a lot of real estate agents, you know, especially in the air quality. And that's a good way for a homeowner to, if they're going through it, is to see if there's some kind of documentation that
Sure.
says this water heater is being taken care of periodically at least.
Yeah, when our customers sell their homes, typically, we roll the service agreement over with the new customer if they'd like us to. But they can certainly have that full access to all the maintenance that we've done on that equipment. We keep it all here. And it's available to the actual homeowner of that property, not necessarily the original homeowner, because we keep all of our files with the individual pieces of property. not
Okay,
with
so
the
it's
owners.
property.
It's property by
specific.
location.
Yeah.
So if I owned the house and then sold it to you, you would still have all that history, so we would know what we had done in that home.
Somebody asked me a question the other day when we started talking about water heaters, and they said that it's no longer necessary with the newer water heaters to insulate them.
Well, that is true. What they've come out to now is they have about 2 inches more of insulation, and it's a foam type insulation.
Inside.
Right, if you have a water heater that can accept insulation, you've got your useful life out of that water heater. That water heater should really be replaced. I mean, it's that old. We do not insulate tanks
Okay.
much at all
Yeah,
anymore.
it always seemed to
because of
me
the
as
age.
like a safety thing, or I don't know. I never-
It is,
never
well, a lot of
looked
people would do, it wasn't so bad on the electric ones, but when they started wrapping the gas ones,
gas
the
heaters,
insulation
block
around the flue, they just don't know, and all of a sudden that catches fire or starts smoldering or whatever, so it did become a bit of a.
Are there any other things in a gas heater that stand out as far as maintenance? Would the maintenance program be the same for a gas water heater as an electric?
Not necessarily, there are similar things that are done, meaning, so your anode rod would be in both water heaters.
And you have an anode?
I do have a new anode rod here, so this is what you would find in a new tank.
Right, it's
And
all
I-
clean.
Yeah, it's all clean, and basically, it's like when you have a boat, you put a zinc on a boat, and the salt water would go
Right.
towards the zinc rather than the heater itself, the boat itself. Same thing with a water heater, it doesn't attack, so this is a sacrificial anode rod. So as the water comes in and it's going to look to take minerals, it takes it off of this anode rod rather than going and attacking the glass line or whatever line.
And I think we'll have a picture we can show of one that is already.
Yes, correct. I will get that to you,
Okay.
so it can be included. But yes, you'll see, and it's about this long. Okay, and it's all.
So
it's
all this stuff
decayed.
has been rotted
All
out?
that's gone. So these need to be
What
at
is the
least
material
checked.
here? What is that made
Uh,
of?
There's a couple different ones. This one I think is manganese,
Okay.
I believe. I forget what the other one is.
It's
but-
designed to corrode, though.
It is,
Right.
that's designed to allow the water, the aggressive water that you get from any town, city or well,
Uh-huh.
to attack this rather than the tank itself, so it helps save the tank. So if people are on the maintenance program, this would probably be replaced again, depending on the water quality, every 3 to 5 years. So when I say they warranty them for 6 to 10 years, manufacturers know that they're probably gonna fail within that, just after the 6 year or after the 10 year. But if people do the continual maintenance, just like somebody, if you have a car and never change the oil, well, your car's not gonna last as long as somebody that does the oil every 3,000 to 5,000 miles and does the
Sure.
maintenance on it. So they'll last a lot longer, most times.
So I mean, so what we said is we should have an annual inspection of this, and can a homeowner, if handy, could do their own, is that correct?
They could do the, I'm not so, they, really, unless they had a camera to go inside the tank.
Okay.
So they couldn't do that internal check, but certainly the sediment flushing and those things.
What about this?
The anode rod, I wouldn't suggest that, and the only reason I say that, if they know how to drop the pressure off the tank, and if they know how to drain
Right.
part of the tank down, it's a little bit more involved than that. So I suppose if there's somebody that is very handy, and they're familiar with that stuff, yes, they could do that.
Yeah, well, I think, I was talking a long time ago,
Mhm.
and the thing is, I think you need the right wrenches,
You do.
and because
You do.
if you strip them, then you've got a problem to
Right.
deal with.
We typically have to use on something to get this anode rod out, we typically have to use an impact gun or a big breaker bar
Oh,
on top of that
that
nut.
is-
This one shows this goes down into the tank on this nipple.
Right.
That's part of it. A lot of them are just this anode rod by themselves with a socket on top.
Okay, so
Which,
breaking that
let me see
connection.
if this one may be, yeah, so if we look at this one's kind of neat, I'll show you this one. This is, well, you think about it, right, so if we had a water heater standing right here,
Mhm.
and the water heater stands about this high,
Okay,
how do you get this anode rod in? You're gonna hit the ceiling,
I never thought of that.
right? So then they make an anode rod, a replacement anode rod, this one, let me get it out of the
But if you
package.
had one of these, then you would have to actually take and tip the,
If you didn't have a ceiling height, yes, or you could use one of these.
Okay.
I've got 2 of these here, but, so this one, obviously, it's done in pieces, and it can go down inside the tank, and you can see that nut. Okay,
Okay.
that's 80% of the tanks have this nut, they're not like this on the feed nipple there. So, and then you screw this in, so when you go to take it out, you have to have an impact wrench to get that out,
okay.
to be able to get the new one
And
in.
then these are gonna kind of rot away by themselves?
Same
One-
thing,
one
and you can see
segment
this
at
is a
time?
cable here that won't rot, so they've got these in here, but this is made so you can get it down into a tank.
Oh, okay, so the cable won't rot?
No, the cable itself won't rot, but the manganese, or whichever one this is,
Yeah.
on these is the sacrificial material.
And your overall experience says that they'll last realistically how long? What- we
3 to 5 years,
3 to 5.
depending on, in this area, certainly that's, you know.
Is well water more of a problem? People with a lot of well water?
Not necessarily here in Rowley, I have problems with our water, so I have filtration on my system.
With filtration, it's.
Yeah, with filtration, you're not gonna be eating up these anode rods as often.
Okay, yeah. And I think everybody could go to their own town, and their town could tell them where.
Absolutely, yeah.
The towns, they're pretty helpful.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
Towns are great, and they can tell you what's in the water, what's not in the water, and,
Yeah.
and we do that quite a bit, so we can make sure that, you know, something's not going wrong with people's system other than.
Now, another question, somebody, and it seems logical, the answer seems logical, but I didn't want to be the expert. So somebody said, I was told that I should keep my water heater on the floor. So let's say we're in a basement with a concrete floor, and that didn't seem right to me.
Mhm.
What was your best estimate of what people should do as far as mounting a water?
Again, if you're in an area that's prone like a basement that can get damp and moist,
Uh-huh.
we usually put them up on something. Now, some of the water heaters today are coming through with legs built on them.
Okay, maybe that's
So,
what
so
we're
you can get
talking
the
about,
airflow
yeah.
underneath those, so you have that as well. So we always say, you know, if in fact it's sitting directly on the ground, especially if people have a tendency to get some moisture in the basements, we do elevate those for that. There are a number of the water heaters though that now come with legs, so it's not. as
Okay,
big
that
of an
makes
issue.
sense. Now, I guess one of the biggest things, and I think we talked about it a little bit, is, you know, planning for your water heater. And you say one of your biggest emergency calls is these water heaters rotting out, the bottoms rotting out.
Sure.
And just,
The glass liner letting go, yeah.
and it's not only the water in the tank, but still you've got a supply, a water supply
Correct.
that's steady.
You do.
And so
Sure.
what's a typical thing, what you usually see when you arrive?
Well, typically, the people don't know how to shut off the water in their
Oh,
home.
good point, yeah, we want to talk about that.
Yeah, so typically, you know, and then again, as we come into your home, we would identify those valves for you.
Mhm.
And as long as we would exercise them to make sure they're working, and if they're not, we'd offer to replace them. And the best kind of valve is similar to this one here. This is a quarter turn ball valve. Okay, so
Okay.
you really only have to turn it a quarter turn and you shut it off.
Okay.
Okay, a lot of the older ones you had to screw in, basically keep turning
Keep
until it shut
turning.
off. This is just a quarter turn, it shuts it off, and you can be assured that it's off.
Now, do you usually locate them on installation someplace?
They have to be within a
Close
foot,
work.
they have to be within a foot of the water heater by code.
Okay,
So I'm not saying that everybody's water heater is done to code. We certainly have come into some homes where they're further away, but we move them when we put the new water heater in.
okay, yeah, so there should be no problem putting
Right.
one of these in.
Yeah, the other thing we do is we tag each valve. We have a valve tag here, and I thought, maybe they forgot, oh, there they are. Okay, so we have a valve tag here, it says emergency shutoffs, okay? It's a, I think they call this Tyvek. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
And we take a little a cable tie on this and we put it on the actual valve itself. So this would say, if it was main water would be checked off. And then you'd know when you go downstairs, because not all homeowners understand, but you know, if you go down and you find this tag, oh, this will shut the main water off, or this will shut the water heater off, or whatever. So we go ahead and we tag all those valves for people so they know, similar to what you have in your electrical panels, if they've labeled your electrical panel so you know this shuts off this or that, we do the same thing with the valve.
Now, what would, just in thinking, is there a difference, I mean, if you had the choice between electric and gas, do you have a preference, or do you leave that, is that a kind of a homeowner's preference, or
Well,
is it a production, or?
Yeah, and if you have gas in your house,
Mhm.
typically the gas water heaters will be much more efficient than electric.
Okay,
They are, but again, depending on the usage, because now they've come out with heat pump water heaters as well. Those are electric, and they're very efficient. Rather kind of costly to install versus a gas water heater at this point. There's new technology, but they're good water heaters. And then, of course, we have the continuous flow water heaters that a lot of people are talking about.
sure, less,
Yeah, the Renai is the big one, that's the gas continuous flow, so if you have a high demand of water heaters.
Has your experience, have you seen a benefit to any one of them, or is it kind of just the home style?
Typically,
Way
it's
people live?
how the house is built
Yeah,
and what utilities are available in there. So we sell a lot of what's called indirect water heaters, which operate off of their heating systems in this area. So it's a tank that's heated just like a room in your house with a coil in it.
okay. Yeah, so there are plenty of options.
There's a number of different options.
And the big thing is, I think the biggest thing we want to get people to really be aware of is that it's probably unnecessary to have your tank rot out and collapse.
Right.
If you just pay a little bit of attention.
Yeah, pay attention to it and make sure that you've have it inspected to make sure that it's okay. We do a lot of inspections for realtors, before people buy the homes, and we're happy to do that. To go out and take a look at it and see what it is. Similar to what a home inspector does, but the home inspectors aren't You know, they oversee everything.
Yeah, they have the.
Right, so, and we're the
responsibility.
specialists, we're the licensed plumbers and HVAC people
Okay.
that.
And you can go right in and give a
We
pretty
can,
good
we can,
recommendation.
yes, yes.
Okay, yeah, that's a pretty good. Now, other than tanks,
Mhm.
kind of giving away and just spreading out how many 100 gallons or so or more
Sure.
water on a floor,
Mhm.
which can, I mean, ruin a floor.
Oh, sure,
And
at home.
what are some of the other areas that you find, when you get emergency calls? I gotta presume it's gotta be toilets.
Certainly,
Toilet
we get leaking toilets, and one of the best ways for people to find out, you know, if you're hearing that water at night coming on.
Oh, yeah, off and on?
Yeah, but if you have some food coloring, you know, we do this as part of the home plumbing inspection that we do, but you can do this as a homeowner. If you go around and flush your toilets,
Mhm.
and as they're filling up, take a little bit of food coloring and dump it in the tank,
Mhm.
not in the bowl, but in the tank, and then just go away and let them fill up, and then come back 20 minutes later without anybody using the toilets. And if you see any of that color in the toilet, you know your tank is leaking,
Okay.
that the water is leaking into the toilet.
Right.
And then the other good thing you can do once in a while is feel around the back of the toilet and around the base of the toilet to see if it's moist.
Kind of got loose on its.
Well, yeah, if it's loose, if the toilet is loose, but also if you feel any moisture around that,
Mhm.
you'll know that either the wax seal is not sealed properly, or maybe you have an issue with the flange.
Well, yeah, in our inspections, I mean, a lot of times, that's the first place I go for mold, I look under the toilet,
Sure.
because if there's water leaking there.
Right.
I mean, that's just like, that's perfect food for mold.
Sure, absolutely.
When it starts building up, so
Yep.
that, well, I think, do you have any other specific advice that you think homeowners could benefit from? Anything that pops out? that-
Well, I think one of the other things we didn't mention was the safety mixing valves that we put on water heaters as well now too.
Okay.
For anti-scald for everybody. That's become a big issue. You've probably heard of those issues of people getting scalded because their hot water's up too high.
Oh, yeah, right, that's a good point.
You know.
That is what, a question that was
Right.
brought up, right?
So by manufacturer's recommendations, again, they say you should install a mixing valve or keep the tank at 120 degrees or less. The problem with that is if you're keeping hot water at 120, you can create salmonella, you can create.
Oh, yeah, that's right, I mean, you're too low to.
Right, so you have to be at 140 degrees, but 140 degrees will scald people, so they make a mixing valve that you mount on the water heater. With about 90% of our water heaters, we sell the mixing valve with it.
Mhm.
And you can adjust that, so you're keeping the hot water tank at 140, and then you mix it back down to the comfort of what's going up to the faucets.
Okay, and you have an adjustment there, is that?
You do, you can adjust that to where you want it. The beauty of that is so if you have a smaller water tank, you're actually making more hot water, right? So you're gonna get an abundance of hot water that you need, and because of the way they've insulated the new tanks today, you're only losing about a half a degree an hour. So over a 24-hour period, you lose about 12 degrees. So
Mhm.
it's not any less efficient than if you were keeping that water at 120.
So, I mean, any great advice from a local plumber?
Well, again, as we get into the colder weather, we talk about freezing pipes and everything as well, which we know can have a lot of harmful effects. So again, make sure you're keeping those cabinet doors open if it's getting real cold,
Mhm.
you know, under your kitchen sinks and all those different things. Don't be turning your heat down when it gets real cold. That creates issues where you end up freezing your heating lines or whatever, or water lines. Keep the house warm, and I know that sounds crazy because you think you're saving money, but you're really not. When it gets real cold, and we make the call out to all of our customers, keep those thermostats up.
Mhm.
Keep it at 70 if you need to get through the cold snap, and then you can go back to whatever it is, so.
So those are things. All right.
Yeah,
Right.
those are the.
Greg, listen, thank you for all your information.
Well,
I
thank
really
you, and
appreciate
thanks for doing this with me.
Yeah,
This is great.
appreciate you inviting us out and everything.
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely, well, thanks for
All right.
coming.
Good.
Great.